Let's get it. 2025. The inauguration. Yeah, Kirk Kennedy. Let's talk to him. We're going to talk to him. First things first. Welcome to CNN. I'm your host, the underdog, Kirk Kennedy. Let's go in. On this channel, we take no part in the unfruitful works of darkness, but instead expose them. So we try to bring things to the light, the darkness into the light. The darkness is spreading. If you are of the Christian tradition such as I am, if you are a believer or a fear of the Lordian such as I am, you are awaiting, you are remembering the future, the day that he said he will return and bring us to the kingdom with him. Until that day, we persevere. All right. Well, what a Martin Luther King's day it has been today. Today is Martin Luther King's birthday, federal holiday, celebrating the life and legacy of the one Dr. Martin Luther King. And today was the inauguration of Sir Donald Trump, the second term as president, the 47th president of the United States. 45 and 47. He just had an inauguration speech. It wasn't that long. It was about 30 minutes or so, give or take. And I just wanted to talk about some of the speech. And let me just say this on the front end. I don't have a political home. And for some of you, you may be offended at that. As a Christian and as a pastor, a man of the cloth, I've seen over the years a couple different things. One, I've seen politics just become so hateful towards the other political party. Democrats and Republicans have always had different points of views, and I understand that there's libertarian, and I'm not dealing with them because they don't have enough gumption to make any real noise. It's really Democrat, left and right, red and blue. So I've seen just so much vitriol come from both sides. It's just been amazing that the bipartisanship that used to exist seemingly is demolished for the trying to one up the other side and get the best of the other side. I personally believe that what's best for the American people isn't always what we even want, but what we're told by a lot of times historical political grievances that people in Congress carry. I mean, the president can only serve 8 years, either consecutively or 2 4-year terms. But if you're a congressman, you could be in there 40 years. You got people in there that have been in the House and in the Senate for decades and been beefing with each other. And so we have what appears to be a really broken Congress. All right. Hopefully, my computer's a little glitchy. It's funny, man. I never lose sight of. I never lose internet, so I'm doing a video. The enemy is trying to stop me from giving y'all truth. All right, so that's the other thing. The other reason why I don't have a political home, I am conservative in my heart, though. Like, I'm not a Donald Trump fan or a Republican, but I'm conservative. My values are conservative because I'm a believer. I've never voted Democrat. I would never vote Democrat, but I don't trust the Republicans at this point either. So it's just like, all right, Lord, I'm just going to be faithful to you and try to help people who struggle with these things. But the other reason why I'm like this is because over the years, I've seen believers. So in Mark 4, right, in Mark chapter 4, Jesus gives a parable of the sower. That's what it's called, parable of the sower. But it's really not about the sower. It's about parable of the people who received the seed, right? That's really what it's about. I don't know why they call it the sower. It's parable of the people who received the seed. It's not about the sower. The sower sows the word, but it's the people who receive the word, different kinds of people. The third group of people that received the word of God, Jesus said that it lands in the thorns and thistles, and then it grows up with the seed and it chokes the word. And he said, these are the people who made a profession of faith, but then the worries, the money, worries, and cares of this life, it says it grow in and choke the word out, and it becomes unfruitful. So in other words, a new sort of religion is formed by people who profess to believe, but then they so worried about money and the cares of this world, which I think politics became that. So many believers on the left and the right became so political that the character that God requires to them became the character of their political party, not of the Lord. And so I watched this happen, and I was just like, I need to stay balanced, both mostly morally. I need to just make sure I'm not offended at people and so forth. So I didn't vote. I don't have a stake in the game. So whatever I offer is not because I'm on one side or the other. I've critiqued Joe Biden ridiculously, and or the Democrats, whatever, and I'll do the same. All right. So having said that, there is his. I'm just going to give some thoughts, just some thoughts for me. You don't have to agree on what I thought about the inauguration address. I'm not going to cover all of it, but just certain things that I thought were kind of interesting. All right. So I'm going to go on sort of chronology of how I saw the event. The first thing that I thought was very interesting to me about Trump's speech. Well, let me say this first. You know, just as a general principle, like as a believer, this isn't a political statement. As a believer, if you're a Christian, if you're really, I'm not talking about if you made a profession of faith, but you're just living however you want. You don't care about the fruits of the Spirit. You just care about the profession of faith and being associated with. That's not what a Christian is. A Christian is someone who places faith in Jesus Christ. You make a profession of faith. You believe that he rose from the dead. He died on the cross and rose from the dead for your sins. But then you also are trying to live your life in obedience to him. You're flawed. You will fail, but you're fighting, right? That's what I am. I'm flawed. I fail, but I'm fighting. Everyone will have areas that will be weaker than other areas. There are areas I'm really strong. There are areas I'm weak, but I'm fighting, right? If you look at Hebrews 11, all those stories of people, all of those people were flawed. Gideon, Samson, even Moses, like all these people were flawed. David was a man after God's own heart and committed adultery. Had the husband killed. So we're all flawed, right? But we're supposed to be people of truth. So I'll just say this plainly. In 2017, I watched Donald Trump make a lot of promises to people, and then he just didn't deliver. Remember the Mexico's going to build the wall stuff? It just didn't happen. He told the people, you know how J.D. Vance got popular? He wrote a book called Hillbilly Elegy that dropped in 2016, and that book was basically giving the details of all the poor white people, which would presumably be called poor white trash. I won't call them that, but that's the kind of the mindset that people have with them. Presumably, he wrote a book, and it was a good book. I thought it changed the game. I thought, man, all the conversations on race, you can't really take it seriously until you read this book and hear from the perspective of the people who are in the heartbeat of America. That's today, surely the people who live in Rust Belt, Kentucky, and Ohio, and all these things, right? So I saw Trump go to these cities and promise them to bring them back to coal mines, and they never came back. I don't fault Trump for that. I think politicians in general, they know what we don't know. They know that we think the president can do all the things that they say. They know that we don't know that they have to work together, whether they like each other or not. They're going to be people who own committees that Republicans need that are Democrat run, and vice versa. And if that Democrat says, nope, you're not doing it, then that promise you made to the American people is not coming through. They know we don't know that. So we tend to think whatever they promise. So this isn't a smite against just Donald Trump. I think the political system, in many ways, positions politicians to lie. They promise they're going to do things that they know cannot come true unless these other 7 things happen, and they rarely do, right? With that being said, if you voted for Trump, this isn't a smite at him. Some stuff he said I agree with, as you'll see. But there's some stuff it's like, I don't know if I trust that. And it's not because of him, but he's promised things in the past, and I think he does. Like most politicians, I think they lie, and they do that because they want to get in office. They tell us things, all right? With that being said, the first thing I thought was interesting, this isn't necessarily a lie, was he made a point in his speech where he was talking, he honored the fact that it was MLK Day. He understood that today was that. And he made a point in his speech that he wants to make MLK's dream a reality. Right? And he quoted a little bit of it, and I was shocked to see the whole room stand up and clap. Let me tell you why I was shocked by that. I was surprised I'm not surprised he said that, because a lot of political speeches are about sentimentality, right? They want you and I, we want to feel connected emotionally, right? So Trump will say things like, I'm trying to be a unifier and all that. Trump's not a unifier. Let's not, come on, man. He's not a unifier. And I'm okay with that. It is what it is. As soon as Trump got in office in 2017, he divided the country by saying, you're fake news. Fake news. And after that, that became 2018's word of the year by, I forgot what major web, it was fake news, right? So Trump's not a unifier, but I get it. But he quoted MLK, and he said some of the speech, and everyone stood up and clapped. And here's why I was surprised. I was surprised for two reasons. The first was, Trump is a conservative, and all the people who stood up were conservatives, right? But the whole time during the sort of Black Lives Matter, from really 2014 to 2020, right, to Biden becoming president. So the end of sort of the middle of Obama's era, all of Trump's campaign, the country was on racial lockdown, right? There was all this stuff happening. Black Lives Matter rose up. Black people were talking about systemic racism and all this stuff. And most of the conservatives, especially the black ones like Candace Owens, Brandon Tatum, all these people, right? Larry Elder, all these people were like, America doesn't have a racist problem, systemic racism. We've already achieved that. And they went systematically through from the civil rights moment, right? From the civil rights legislation that was signed, was the end of systemic racism, was the end of these things. Black people have had plenty of time to get themselves together. They're playing the victim. This was the narrative for the last 7 or 8 years, right? So in other words, conservatives were already saying Martin Luther King's dream has already been reached for Black America. Black America ceases to take advantage of it. And at some level, there's some truth to that. There's some black people that would rather complain about what they don't have than grind and get what they could have, right? I will stand by that. But that's not the whole truth. That's not always the truth, right? But that's partly true. To say that we're going to make his dream a reality, I thought y'all already said it was a reality. I thought we already living the King's dream. That's what we've been hearing for the last 2025? That's what we've been hearing since 2014. For the last 11 years, that black people have already had this dream. We've already had this. What about all the laws that the Democrats passed and Lyndon Johnson's Great Society and giving you welfare and all these things? You've had plenty of opportunities that you didn't earn. So affirmative action. You already have it. So why are we saying we're going to make his dream a reality when for the past 11 years, you've been telling black people that they have that dream already, but they're not ceasing to take advantage of it? So when I hear stuff like that, it's just sentimentality to me. It's sentimentality to me. It's like, well, you've already told us that why are we trying to make his dream a reality? I thought that already happened. So I was like, this is going to be an interesting speech. Again, this is my perspective. You don't have to agree. All right. And then I thought was interesting. He said he's going to pass executive orders that were based on common sense, right? I totally agree with that. Man, has our country, common sense has become a pastime. Right? Common sense in America has literally become a thing of the past. Now, you may be tempted to think, well, that's because of the left or the right. Because I'm a Bible man, I'm an Ephesians 6:12 guy, among other things. And Ephesians 6:12 says, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against the authorities, the rulers of this age, the powers, the principal in this present darkness, right? So what Paul and what God wanted us to know was your beef is not necessarily against other people, but the spiritual forces behind those people. So I don't think it's just the left or the right. Whenever I see an issue, I think there's a spiritual entity promoting that, right? So we're supposed to love our neighbors. We're not supposed to love the spiritual entities. That's why the distinction is there. But I think that we've come to a point, which I think, humanly speaking, could easily be attributed to the left, the liberal left, right? That have just made just natural scientific, like we're a post-science society. Remember when the age of enlightenment, you remember that period from like the 16th century to the 18th century was the I think therefore I am. There came reason, the elevation of reason and the scientific method, hypothesis, analysis and theory. And then faith became sort of relegated to the back as something that was like juvenile and unintelligent, and reason and logic and science. And so you create this idea that science is more trustworthy than faith and Christianity than religion. But now in the day and age that we live in, it's clear that people don't even have confidence in their science. Now you're assigned at birth something rather than this is how you were born. There's no scientific component. It's all psychological. It's a post-science society and a pro-psychological society. So we're post-science. We're past science. No one trusts science anymore. We're post-science, right? We're pro-psychological. So whatever I psychologically think I am matters. So when he said executive orders have common sense, I was like, yes. Yes, let's bring common sense back to reality and back to our country, all right? And the second thing he said was he's going to declare a national emergency on the southern border. I think it needs to happen. I know people who have been down there, who have talked about. A buddy of mine does work down there, and he just said it's chaos. And he said you get snippets of the news, and he said, yeah, it's just chaos. I just think it's chaos. And so I think a national emergency to the southern border is, I don't know if he's going to actually do it. Again, not just to Trump, for all you Trump supporters. I'm not just attacking. He just doesn't have integrity to me. He did do some things that he said. I'm not saying he doesn't do anything. Only Satan lies every time he speaks. But there was a lack of integrity. He did promise things last time that never happened. So it's like, sounds good. I think that would be good. But I did have this thought, though. I don't know when the border stuff started. Maybe you in the chat could tell me. You may be more knowledgeable in this. I don't know when it really started and what. I don't know how much is it the Democrats or Republicans? Because everyone gets in. There were times where, this is the thing, right? The ideal situation for any president is to have the majority of the Supreme Court, the House, and the Senate all be the same political party, right? So you got that, then you can just go carte blanche. That's what you really want. I mean, Bush had that back in around when he was 01. You had the majority of the House was Republican. The Senate, so one controls the money, one controls the laws, and the Supreme Court makes all those major decisions, right? There are times when you have all of those in place. When you don't have all of those in place, you got to work with the other side. So if one party controls the House and one controls the Senate, well, if that's your party that controls the House, well, maybe they'll give you funding for your bill, but the Senate will say, no, we're not letting you pass because they control the law side, right? Or maybe it's vice versa. But having said that, I don't know who started it, but I remembered, I thought that's crucial. We need that. But I also thought, man, if we would have built that wall, if we would have made Mexico build that wall back in 2017, 2016, what he campaigned on, we wouldn't probably need this. So again, I think Biden and them butchered the border with just which he said right after this, which I totally agree with. He said returning elements back to medical, no catch and release. I'm sorry. I know that some people will get offended at that, and I know that. But like that catch and release law that the Democrats ran with was horrible, fam. And I don't want to hear but those people, they take their jobs. It's not just that Mexicans come in and do jobs that Americans won't do. That's not the main issue. It's that we don't know which of the people they're catching and releasing, and some of those people are criminals. They're not all just people looking for a better life. Remember in the 80s, when Fidel Castro released all these people from Cuba, and they all came to America, and we thought they were refugees, but he released a lot of violent criminals. They were political prisoners. It was pretty crazy. So I think there's truth in that. I think you shouldn't just catch and release people. I think you got to catch them and investigate what's going on. But that's a crazy reality there. The border, there's no real easy answer. Maybe build the wall could have been one, but it wasn't. All right. He said he was going to revoking the electric vehicle mandate. I thought this was interesting for one main reason. Just in case you don't know, there is a law that was passed that starting in 2027, that was passed by the Biden administration, if I remember correctly. And this law essentially says that the vehicle admissions stuff is going to be so difficult to pass unless you have an electric vehicle, right? You have to have an electric vehicle. Basically, in 2 years, you would not be able to pass a lot of the Department of Motor Vehicles law, all that stuff. The emissions, you wouldn't be able to pass emissions unless you have an electric vehicle. So Trump said he's revoking that. He's going to revoke that mandate and start investing in. He said we're going to drill baby, right? To try to get oil so that we can get back in the world stage of having oil, right? He basically was saying we're not going to an electric car society. We're not doing that, and we're going to get rid of the laws that were leading us in that direction. I thought this was interesting because Elon Musk has made tons of money on electric cars, right? If I'm not mistaken, I don't have a Tesla, but I see a bunch of Teslas lined up at the electric gas station part. I got a Honda Odyssey. I got a gangster soccer mom vehicle, and I'm grateful for that because I never get pulled over. They see me in that joint and be like, I could be smuggling big drugs in there. I never get pulled over, rarely ever. With that soccer mom, I love that soccer mom car. When everybody was getting pulled over by police, I was just driving past them like deuces. They were like, man, we ain't pulling no dude over who drives a Honda Odyssey, baby. He looks the description. But I just thought, doesn't your boy Elon Musk make millions and millions off electric cars who would benefit greatly from having this mandate? But Trump was like, nah, we ain't doing that. So I thought that was interesting, but I think it's for the better society. The vast majority of us are not going to go electric. We're not going to go electric. You know, I got a friend of mine who goes to my church, man. He bought the Cybertruck, and I'm glad he actually agrees with what I'm about to say. He bought the Cybertruck, and I never understood why. I think the Cybertrucks are the ugliest cars ever. When I first saw it, I thought it was like a joke. I thought the Cybertruck was like something that somebody just threw together. It reminds me of like Minecraft. My boys used to play Minecraft. And I'd watch them like build, and it was always squares and stuff. And I'd watch my sons build these Minecraft houses and car. It looked like a Minecraft truck. Now on the inside it's incredible, but most people are going to judge your car from the outside. We are a judge a book by the cover society. I think they're ugly cars. But my buddy has one. He says, yeah, it's ugly, but that joint rides. So he's going to let me drive it, but I didn't want to drive. I wasn't pressed to drive it. Maybe one day. Having said that, electric cars are the new thing. I thought it was interesting that Trump said, we're getting rid of that because we're not going to turn. And I appreciate that because I don't want to drive an electric car right now that I'm aware of. And I'm sorry if I'm hurting the culture. God's sovereign. I'm sorry. I'm not trying to burn the ozone layer. I just ain't trying to pay money for an electric car right now. All right. He also said we're going to create the External Revenue Service. This is what I love about Trump. I do love Trump for certain things, man. I do. The External Revenue Service. Basically, this is going to be, I don't know if this is going to ever even happen. Let me tell you why I don't think it's going to happen at all. It's the Mexico border. It's the Mexico wall effect. Let me explain what I mean. So this organization, like the IRS, Internal Revenue, right? We pay taxes. We don't pay. They're on you. You know, they might let you slide for a couple of years, and then about 4 years later, you find out you owe the IRS $77,000 in back taxes. And it's like, whoa. So you're trying to get a loan out to pay the loan that you owe them, right? So that's what the IRS does. You know, they deal with our taxes. Well, the External Revenue Service is going to be going after other nations that essentially owe us money, according to Trump. So this is in conjunction with tariffs he's going to pass on exports, all of it. It's meant to make America great again. I get it. I love the idea of it. I love it. But I don't think it's going to be legitimate. I think in these speeches, again, all politicians do this. This isn't conducive to Trump. I'm not a Trump hater. I just don't trust him or anybody else for the most part because I know that they're saying things they can't do. And Trump I think he's just a liar. I think he lies a lot. So when he said it, it sounds good, like, oh, we're going to go back. But it's the same thing we heard about the border. I actually thought, oh, this is going to be gangster. If he makes Mexico build a wall for us, billions of dollars, that's a gangster move. That joint never happened. That joint probably got about 32 bricks down there. That joint never happened. So to me, it would be sweet if those countries have to be willing to give you back the money that you owe them. And I'm going to tell you something. America has lost. So in the world, right, there are three things that have made America great. This is from my opinion. The three things that have made America great, right? The U.S. dollar as the strongest currency, right? The U.S. dollar, right? Entertainment, America's entertainment, like Hollywood. There's no greater entertainment factor than Hollywood. And then music side, rap music is multi-billion-dollar industry. I don't know if countries have I don't know if other countries have like country music like America. I'm sure they do. I've never heard like no country music from Sweden. but you hear rap music, right? So it's the dollar, right? It's the entertainment that we provide in America, and then thirdly, the moral compass, right? We kind of promote ourselves as the moral compass of society. We're the protectors of the free world, right? We're the ones making sure that Taiwan doesn't get overrun by China and all these. Those are the three sort of the three legs of the stool of America. It's the U.S. dollar, America's entertainment, Hollywood and music, and then our moral compass. That's what makes people respect us. That's what makes people love America. The only thing that's standing right now is the moral compass. It's the U.S. dollar. And that was under attack for a while. You had Iran, China, and a bunch of other countries trying to create another currency that would rival. They wanted countries to abandon the U.S. dollar. I thought this was I read this article 2-3 years ago. I was waiting to hear oh my gosh, the dollar's dropping drastically. We better start investing in gold or silver, or you better jump on the Bitcoin train fast. I remember reading America, and this may still be happening, but America was developing a digital dollar, a digital currency, because we were preparing for the American dollar taking a hit because these other nations. But so far that hasn't really happened. The American dollar is still, I could be wrong, if we're not the currency, we're right up there still, right? Entertainment, we still kind of make our way entertainment, but other Bollywood, Indian Hollywood is blowing up. So they're not dependent on us. They're doing their own thing. But the moral compass, no one respects America's moral compass. No one. Why am I saying this? Because if you're going to create an institution that's going to go after countries that owe us money like China and stuff, those countries got to fear you a little bit. They got to respect you a little bit to even be willing to give you that money back. You're going to hire people that are never going to, it's going to be like cold calling. Hey, I'd like to sell you a couple of vacuums. Click, click. They're not going to get money back from these nations unless you threaten them. When these things happen behind the scenes, there's a lot of okay, we're going to stop you from being able to export goods, or those things that Americans. We're going to lock down your account. They got to threaten people to get. So I don't think this is going to really happen. All right. The next thing he said was, we're bringing free speech back. I kind of know what that means, but I don't know what that means. I don't know what it means, because here's the thing. If you're a Christian like I am, if you're a believer, you don't have free speech. You don't. And I don't mean because we're believers. I just mean the Bible doesn't tell us we're allowed to say. Free speech in its essence is the freedom to say whatever you want to whomever you want and it be protected. In the most minimalistic, reductionistic, simplistic terms, that's what free speech is. As believers, we don't have that. We don't have free speech. Ephesians 4 talks about be careful of coarse joking. James talks about taming the tongue. Proverbs talks about a man who gives full vent to his anger is a fool, but the one who controls his tongue is why. We don't have the luxury of being able to say whatever we want. So as believers, free speech is an American constitutional right, but it's not a biblical one. We're told to control our tongue, control our speech, and all of it. But with that being said, the rest of the country that's not believers, they believe in the process of free speech. Now, in America, there are some things, I don't know what that means. Is Trump saying that you can now, as a YouTube content creator, I can say stuff and then it's not going to be flagged by YouTube? I don't think you can do that, because companies have their own terms and conditions and they're allowed to set rules and standards for. So I'd be interested to know, everyone clap, but what does that mean? He didn't clarify it. At least I missed it. Maybe you understood what he meant. I didn't hear him clarify free speech back. A lot of these terms, even Make America Great Again, they never clarify what great again is, what great is. And so we just add our own definition to it, and we get excited about what we think he's talking about. Just like Romans 8:28. You know how many people that have used that verse? All things work together for the good of those who love God, for those who are called according to his purpose. You know how many people use that verse to tell you and I or themselves that whatever I desire, God's going to give it to me because all things work together for good? That is not what that verse means. They forget about verse 29. For those he foreknew, he predestined to be conformed to the image of his son. So all things work together for the good of conforming you to be like Jesus. And often that's going to come by suffering. Hebrews 5:7. Although he was a son, he learned obedience through what he suffered. Many Christians think we're not supposed to, but if you're supposed to be conformed to the image of Jesus and he learned obedience through what he suffered, how are you and I not going to suffer? So I don't know what he means by free speech. I don't know. I mean, I know what free speech means. I don't know what Trump means about bringing it back. Is that a social media thing? Are people not allowed to say what they want in a broader scale? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see what happens. All right. He said he wants America to be colorblind and merit-based. Again, and people clap for this. I don't know what you mean by that. Because the last 11 years, as people have said, we're a systemic racist country, and this focus is on merit. That is like people like, here's what merit means. Merit essentially means you work hard, you earn it, you get it, right? But here's the problem. There is a professor of oh man, I like his book too. It's called it may be called The Tyranny of Merit. His name is Andrew. Let me tell you 1 second. I really like this book. I haven't read it in some time, but it's a book where white guy that talks about wrote a book on the fallacy of merit, and in the sense that like it's promoted, but it's not really true. And I'm trying to find the name of the book and the author. I have so many books in my Audible. I listen to Audible books like fast. I just be ripping through them joints. Where are you? I thought it was an interesting book. Is this it? No, that's not it. Come on. Merit. There it is. The Tyranny of Merit. Oh, that's one by Michael Sandel. That's not actually the book I'm talking about. That's the book I said, but I got that one too. That's an interesting book. Essentially, here's what they're saying is that the meritocracy trap. Boom, there it is. Daniel Markovits, The Meritocracy Trap. Professor at Harvard. He basically says meritocracy is a false American claim because it basically says you earn it. You work hard, you go to college, and you earn it. That's merit. You earn it. He said the problem is if that only works in a society where everyone starts in the same place. You're going to have people that are way ahead, that have way further resources and stuff. That they like prime example. I was telling my sons this last night. We were coming back from my mom's house. And I forgot why we brought this up. But my sons, I was talking about politicians and the way they pass laws. I said, these politicians, because my kids go to public school and sometimes they have schools that have to go through metal detectors. There's stuff that happens sometimes in their schools. And I was telling my son, these politicians, I was talking about politicians on the left for real, because I was saying that I had heard that Trump was going to go after some of these things. And I was talking to my sons. My sons are 17, 15, and 13. And I was telling my oldest son, who's a junior in high school, I was saying, a lot of the politicians on the left, they pass all these laws about sexuality and diversity. And I said, but you know what? They can do that because none of those laws affect their kids. I said, all those kids, they go to these private schools like in D.C., Sidwell Friends, and they go to school with other rich private. So they never have these problems in the schools. They pass laws for the rest of us, but they keep their kids away from all that drama, right? So I was telling my sons that. And so I was explaining to them, like, this is what happens in politics now is they pass laws to affect the rest of us, but they never make their children submit to those. They keep them in schools and private communities, and they grow up and become the next senators or the next heads of companies and organizations because they have all these connections. So the rest of us, we just got to start off the Drake, started from the bottom, now we here. My sons don't have that. So if you're going to say meritocracy, well, my sons aren't starting in the same position as this politician's children. Right? They may be the same age, but you have something that we never got based on a number of things. So the idea of being colorblind and merit-based, I don't think is real for where our society is. I don't know if that's a real person. First of all, we're not going to be colorblind because it's just unrealistic. We're a country that relates to each other by the color of skin. We just can't help it. It's just a reality. We relate to each other, right? When the media never describes who a person is. They describe them by how they look and what the color they are. A black man was such and such. A Latino man was. They just describe you by who you are. So I don't even know if that's realistic. Then Trump said he's going to declare there are only two genders. I said make and female, right? I'm an idiot. It's male and female, right? Two genders, male and female. I thought it was interesting that he didn't get the strongest applause for that. I don't even remember, if I'm not mistaken, I don't remember anyone standing up for that. Only two genders, male and female. Now, I'll be honest with you, I appreciate that. I'm sorry. I appreciate that. Actually, I'm not sorry. I'm sorry that some people may be offended. I'm not sorry that I feel that way. I'm a Bible man. I think he made the male and female. I think there are other... I just never understood this. Like I never understood this. I get that people identify as whatever and all of it. I get that. But I don't remember a time in America where a small percentage of people's psychological or sexual preferences should basically transform how the rest of us think about these things. Okay, if you want to identify as that, that's fine. But don't call me cisgender. Don't tell me that like I have to change my view of the whole world of science, that I don't know what a woman is. Don't tell me that. If you want to identify as that, do that. That's how it's always been. But you can't impose on all society that we have to pretend like there's no such thing as gender, that it's all a social construct. There are certain things that are social constructed when it comes to gender. Social constructed when it comes to gender. Like boys play with trucks and girls play with, boys wear blue and girls wear pink. I seen dudes with a pink cardigan on. Sue Carlton had one on in one episode in The Fresh Prince. Now, I wouldn't wear no pink, like that, but I just don't like the color. But again, it's a social construct that women can only wear pink. And there are certain things that are a gender social construct, for sure. But when you're getting down to like what you're assigned to at birth, that's crazy, fam. That's crazy that a child who's 4 or 5 years old can tell their parents what they are sexually, what they believe that they are, based on how they feel. But yet we would never let them vote, drive, or do nothing. When I was on sabbatical last summer with my sons, we went to this park, and they said, no, actually this was the Grand Canyon. We were going to the Grand Canyon. And they said, how many children, how many adults? I said, 1 adult, 3 children. And they said, what are the ages of the children? And I said, 12, 15, and 16. And they said, well, actually, so that's 3 adults and 1 child. And I said, why? They're not even 18 yet. I said, so you're an adult when you're 18. They were like, well, you're an adult at 13 here. I said, oh, okay. So when you guys want to make money from us, my children are adults at 13. But when they can do anything, when they have to vote or do anything substantial, they got to be 18. And then 21, and then 20, all this stuff, right? I mean, I wasn't being mad. I was just laughing at the reality of how much those laws and rules ebb and flow when it comes to how much money we can make and what we're doing, right? So I just think that happens a lot. I get it. If you're going to do that, fine. But to make society have to learn, have to figure out what pronouns to use based on, and there's the thing. If people get misgendered, they'll say they'll unalive themselves, right? Here's what I don't understand. And I'm sure somebody will think this is insensitive. This is honestly what I don't get. If I say that I identify as a thin white man, right? You can say, well, that has nothing to do. No one is sexual. If I identify as something that I'm not physically, biologically, only just psychologically, if I identify as that, right? If I say that I'm going to unalive myself if you don't support that, so that means I care so much about what you think of me that if you don't think of me in the way that I want, I'll unalive myself. Why wouldn't that be a mental health issue for that person? Like that, to me, like if you're willing to unalive yourself, right? Transition to the next life, just because your psychological distinction or preferences are not accepted by all people, that to me, that's the most fragile. I mean, to unalive yourself, like for that reason, like to me, that's a mental health problem. That's a mental health problem. Like I mean, I can't imagine ever doing that, but it would definitely not be because people disagree with my preferences. So it's just really interesting where we've gotten to as a society. But I blame a lot of that on the enemy. We do not wrestle with flesh and blood. There's a moralism that comes from Satan that's trying to trump the morality that comes from Jesus. And so it's interesting that's going to happen. So I think it's going to cause a lot of backlash. I will say this. If you are a believer and you're a conservative and you voted for Trump and you're excited, you're hearing this stuff and you're excited, do that. Be that. That's totally fine. But just be aware that this is what I really believe. I think that a lot of these things that Trump is doing, because he claims to be a Christian in the same thing, he said that God spared him he didn't say he was saved in his speech, but he said God spared him so that he could basically change the country. That may be true. I don't know. I didn't ask. When I pray to God, I don't ask him that kind of questions. But I will say this. If you're a believer, whether you voted for Trump or not, buckle up. Buckle up. Because Trump is going to be a bull in a china closet. He's not subtle. And he has no qualms about, because our culture has turned into us versus them, the political us versus them, that has become, it's spy versus spy, right? That's become such a dominant element of our culture that even among believers, it's us versus them. People were losing relationships, getting divorced for crazy things because you have a different political view. Because that's the culture today, which I think Donald Trump really helped initiate. Not fully, because I think Obama was wilding his last 2 years. I mean, Obama, that's a different conversation. He was wilding, bro. So he really helped Trump latch on to something, and then everyone, and it became us versus them. Because it's us versus them in society, there's only two genders, male and female. For most believers, they'll be encouraged by that, but the world is going to hate us because of it. So just know that. Just know that, like, the Lord doesn't do nothing for nothing. So all the stuff that Trump does that people hate, especially things of a sexual nature, especially those types of things, they're going to blame it on Christians and the church. And it will be, I think, part of it's going to expedite the suffering and the persecution of the church in America. People are you're excited about what Trump is saying? Sweet. I'm not saying I don't even disagree with that. I'm sorry. And I'm saying I'm sorry not because I'm sorry I agree with it. I'm just saying I'm sorry that people are going to be offended. And I get it. But I agree with male and female. I'm not doing all that. This is no, because where does that end? It's just not real. But I think because Trump doesn't know how to say things, I think he's divisive, and people are they want that us versus them. There is no, if I have all knowledge of all things and know all prophecies but lack love. I do not think Trump is loving at all. I think many Christians who they follow the character of Trump. Again, remember that Mark 4 parable where the cares of this life and the desire for riches and what I think a lot of Christians are syncretistic in their faith. I call it, there's a couple names I call it, but one of the things I think is just there's this syncretistic view, right? Where there's these two things, right? I call it theoletical, and it's just you're a Christian, so there's then it's political. Your politics inform your Christianity rather than your Christianity informing your politics. And by that, I don't mean so you think God doesn't care about? Sure, He does, but God cares more about the character of His people than the policies they stand behind. So God says, love your enemies. He doesn't say love them unless they disagree with you politically. Love them unless they're on the left or the right. Love them unless they don't agree with a woman's right to choose. Love them unless they don't know what a woman is. Love them unless, he doesn't say that. That's what politics says. So what you have is a lot of people whose Christianity is not biblical, it's theological, and that it's the cares of this world and the definition of marriage and these things that seem important. God is sovereign, fam. God said, heaven is my throne and the earth is my footstool. He said that in Isaiah 66, and he said it in the Sermon on the Mount in Matthew 5. He said, look, don't make a vow, don't vow to heaven because that's God's throne, and don't make a vow on earth because that's God's footstool. Jesus said that. God, I'm going to take back the country for Jesus. You're going to take back his what's under his foot? The Lord doesn't need, He's sovereign. It's like we got to be faithful. We'd rather be religious than be righteous, right? So, and people don't see this. They get mad at me for saying it as if I have a neutral position. No, I just want to have the character of grace. I don't want to just understand the doctrines of grace. There's a difference. I think there's a lot of people that are not going to make it who know the doctrines of grace because they don't have the character of grace. So I think this only two genders, I think is great, but the way Trump delivers these things, and people are going to get offended at the church, buckle up, be ready. You're going to be persecuted. And it might not even be for your faith, but because they're going to attribute that you voted for him because you're a Christian and you agree with everything he says. That's the culture we live in. I think it's going to happen. And then lastly, I thought this was funny. I think this is not going to happen, but he said he's going to turn the Gulf of Mexico's name into the Gulf of America. You got to love Trump, man. I busted out laughing when I heard that. That would, I mean, I don't think, what difference does it make? Does anyone actually even care about the Gulf of Mexico? When's the last time, Beyond, when's the last time you thought about the Gulf of Mexico? I just thought, man, that's pretty funny. But I still liked it. I think, I love that part. That's the stuff about Trump I like. I think he just be talking on the side of his neck, but I bang with it. The Gulf of America. I thought that was pretty funny. I don't know if that's going to mean anything anyway. So, anyway, that's just my take on the actual thing. You can agree to disagree. I don't make videos so that everyone agrees with me, and I don't make videos to disagree. This is just what I think. So you can agree, disagree, but I don't know what you thought about it, but I thought it was an interesting inaugural speech, and I don't ever believe the vast majority of anything anyone says. So we'll see. Let's give it a year or two and see where we're at. But I appreciate y'all watching, man. Thanks for watching. I'll check out the next video. Grace and peace.